Hello guys, it's me Simo Orahara, and in this video I'll talk about Ichigo's family as well as the secret of the blood that runs in their veins. Of course, when I say Ichigo's family, I mean the Shiba noble family. This family, in my personal opinion, is the only family that Kobo told us a lot about compared to the rest of noble families, both in the manga and the novel. Especially in the novel because it contained very important information about this noble family. To proceed to talk about Shiba, we must start from the beginning, and the beginning will be with the first ancestor of the Shiba family. Because of this ancestor, it can be said that his characteristics as a personality are the common traits that we'll find whether in Isshin Shiba or Kaien Shiba, as well as Ichigo Shiba or Kurosaki. So I think if Kobo wanted to draw the founding ancestor of the Shiba family, he might be a replica of both Kaien and Ichigo as a shape. And we have spoken of the ancestor of noble families being the original sinners in making Ryo in that humiliating condition by sealing him and cutting his organ, etc. But at the same time, we cannot say that all the ancestors were the same. If we come and analyze the positions of the ancestors, we will find that between the ancestors there were two contradictory parties: bad party, evil party, a party that think in its interest and wanted to take advantage of Ryo's abilities and control his power, which is the ancestors of the Tsunayashiro. This ancestor was the one who came up with all those demonic thoughts. He was the one who decided to seal Ryo, the one who came up with the idea of tearing him apart. While there was a party who was against all these ideas put forward by the Tsunayashiro's ancestor. This party was the ancestor of Shiba, and Shiba's ancestor, as Ichibi said, was against Ryo's sacrifice. He even worked hard so that Ryo wouldn't be a victim of the Tsunayashiro's ideas. And he wanted to be in the place of Ryo. He wanted to sacrifice himself. As Ichibi said, he was looking for a technique that would enable him to become in Ryo's place. What is important is that this conflict between the attributes of sacrifice and the desire to protect others represented by the ancestor of Shiba did not withstand the greed of the ancestor of Tsunayashiro. And there is no doubt that the rest of the ancestors were inclined to the desires of the Tsunayashiro, because after that, after Ryo was sealed and cut off, the ancestor of Tsunayashiro intended to erase Shiba from the history of the Soul Society, as if this act was a reaction to what Shiba's ancestor was doing in opposition to Tsunayashiro, in the sense that the rest of the ancestors were with Tsunayashiro and the latter because he saw that Shiba's ancestor was the only one who did not agree with most of what he said. He decided to punish him as if he was saying, "Oh, so you wanted to stand in my way, then I will erase you from history." That's why we find that the status of the Shiba family is not like the rest of the families, even though they are on the same level in terms of status. They are all considered one of the 5 great noble families, and here I must explain the structure of the Shiba family. Apparently, because of what Tsunayashiro had done trying to marginalize the Shiba family, the main branch of the family decided to live outside the Seirechi, meaning in a period that we don't know and it wasn't mentioned, the main branch of Shiba resided in the Rekongai, and this branch is represented by Kaien, Kako and Ganjo, and these are the main branch. A long time ago, as we said, they lived outside the Seirechi. At the same time, a branch of the family was still living inside the Seirechi, and it's Isshin Shiba branch. Isshin Shiba is the uncle of the 3 brothers, Kaien, Kako and Ganjo. That's why when Isshin Shiba was still the captain of the 10th division, the family was still considered one of the 5 noble families. But with the death of Kaien Shiba, and I have to confirm again that this incident of Kaien's death was before the flashback of Isshin, and this is confirmed in the novel that talked about the wedding of Rukia, and also in the last novel, Can't Feel Your Own World. The important thing is that despite of the death of Kaien Shiba, this wasn't something that called for any decision about the family, but what happened to Isshin and his decision to leave the Soul Society in that way, the entire family was expelled from its position as a noble family. And here we come up to an important point, which is the actions of the Shiba family. Several personalities spoke of the fact that this family, the blood of sacrifice and doing what their hearts dictate to them, is a characteristic that distinguishes them, so that they don't care about the laws as much as they care about what they see as the right action. And frankly, I see Isshin's sacrifice as one of the greatest sacrifices that we can see. Sacrifice your position as a captain of the 10th division, sacrifice returning to your family and returning home, and more than that, to sacrifice your existence as a Shinigami and become a human without any power. What Isshin did is the most prominent example of the manifestation of the concept of sacrifice in this family. And Kain Shiba, and as Hikofuni mentioned, he also has these qualities. He decided to fight the whole of Metastasia, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name. He fought it alone because that's what he believed in. And we come to Ichigo. When Ichigo saw Ichigo for the first time, he saw the traits of Shiba's ancestor, and in several situations Ichigo decided to sacrifice himself to protect others. He decided to become a substitute Shinigami to save his family. He decided to sacrifice his Shinigami powers to protect the world. I mean, the concept of sacrifice is in the blood of Shiba. Even Ichigo played an important role in changing the concept of Kuchiki Byakuya, who was attached to the laws and insisted on executing his sister. That's why I think the members of the Shiba family centuries ago and thousands of years ago had these qualities that were contrary to the characteristics of the rest of the noble families, especially the Tsunayashiro. So they marginalized the Shiba family and gave an inferior image around them, and perhaps they carried out several schemes for them that made the main branch move outside the society. And frankly, I doubt that the Shiba took a part of Ryo. I even think that they were developing, for example, as I said, a technique to rid Ryo of that situation he was in, or something like that. And by the way, I find that the Shiba family, like the Stark family in the series of Game of Thrones, while the Tsunayashiro family can be compared to the Lannister family, a family that only cares about its interests. And another thing I would like to point out is what Ichibi said about Ichigo. He mentioned that when he saw Ichigo, as I said, he was sure that Ryo's interest in Ichigo was because he had qualities that would make him able to take his place. But because that didn't happen, Ichibi said that the world still needs him. I mean, needs Ichigo. So do we understand from this that there is still another danger coming, danger greater than Yhwach, and Ichigo needs to face it? Especially that we have a chapter of hell. So did the world keep Ichigo free because there is still a danger coming? And this danger will come from hell, and in it Ichigo may have to make another huge and unusual sacrifice, especially with the involvement of his son Kazui in the events and his relationship with hell. So this is the end of my video, guys. Tell me your thoughts and see you in my next video.